Watching guys, it's finally time for another PC build. I finally get to upgrade my gaming PC and this is what it turned out like. So basically what happened was I built a PC a while ago and I had some major overheating issues. So what I've done is I've got another case and I've actually gone out and bought a different board because obviously the case was an ITX board. So now we're going with this one here and we're going to rebuild the system and hopefully everything is going to be fine now. So if you haven't watched that video, you can check out my videos. It was basically an ITX build that I did. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put everything back into this new build with this new motherboard here and a new case. Everything else is pretty much the same, but I thought I'd take you along for the ride. I'm going to go ahead and remove this heatsink on the here. Now there's quite a few different slots here. We've got quite a few M.2 slots on this board. But basically, we're just going to put in the same drive that we had before, and I will be upgrading this to the Gen 5 when the prices come down just a little bit, because the prices are a little bit crazy on the Gen 5 drives at the moment. There's a little bit of sticky pad on there, so I'm just going to remove that. And all you need to do here is just put this back in, and this should be good enough for what I'm going to be using this PC for, which is obviously video editing and things like that. So that's basically what this machine is going to be for. I am putting this in the PCIe 5.0 slot, and that's fine because it is backward compatible. And again, once I get the new drive, I will be upgrading this actual drive out, because this is a Gen 4 drive in here, PCI Express 4.0, which doesn't give you the fastest speeds, but it's good enough for what I need. So I'm going to remove this other heatsink down the bottom here. As you can see, there's quite a few places to put in drives on this motherboard. I think this is the way it's going. You can see here when I've removed this here, we do have another 2 slots on here, and there's another one above it as well. So there's quite a few slots for M.2s here, which we can populate. So it's going to give you plenty of storage in the future. So I think this is the way forward, and it looks like it's all going to be contained on the board, which is going to be good. So I could put a couple of these drives in here, which will give me ample storage. This is a 4 terabyte. Only a Gen 3 drive here, but it's good enough for storage. And again, I could put another one in here as well if I wanted to. And that's quite reasonable price now for these sort of drives. So you can see there's 2 thermal pads on here. I just need to remove the sticker for one of these because I'm not populating the other one. So there is room there for some more. And I'm just going to tighten these screws down. So that is the storage done. Now, building computers is super easy nowadays. If you've never built a PC before, now is the time to get into PC building. It's super easy and it can save you quite a bit of money if you can build your own PCs. So next up, we're going to put the CPU in here. I've got the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X, and I will be upgrading that at some point. But right now, we're just going to populate that inside this socket right in here. Pretty straightforward stuff. And just line up the triangle in the top right. Things have changed a little bit with the orientation of these, but pretty much simple to put in. Once you've got that into position, drop the cover down and just push the retention lever back, and that little plastic thing should pop up. And keep that, because if you ever need to return the motherboard, you will need to put that back on to the actual board to return it. Otherwise, they will not accept it. Let's get the memory in. I've pulled the retention levers back on the top. There's none on the bottom. They are fixed, and I'm just going to put in 32 gigabytes of this Trident memory. I have ordered another 32 gigs, so that will be 64 gigs in here. That's on order and it's coming. But basically, that should be plenty for what I need. But normally, most people will just get away with, 16 and 32 gigs, depending on what you're doing with your PC. But 64 gigs for video editing is plenty for what I need. I'm going to remove this bracket on the board here. You should keep these safe as well, just in case you need to return the board. And also in case you are going to sell the board. So keep these safe, keep these in the motherboard box. I'm just going to remove the 4 screws and the brackets because we're not using these plastic brackets. We're going to be using a all-in-one cooler from Phanteks. So I'm just going to remove these. And once this is removed, we can then put these in the motherboard box just in case we need them if we need to send it back. So let's go ahead and put the mounting bracket screws on for the all-in-one cooler. And this is a super easy method of installing an all-in-one on your system. These just slot onto the actual board, and we don't have to remove the back plate because this is the correct backplate for this one. Now you may have to change it for other types of boards, but this one we can leave the backplate on, which is going to make it super easy. So I'm just going to put these on finger tight. There's 4 of them here. And once this is done, we can then move on to the next step. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do there. Finger tight. You don't have to over tighten these. I'm going to put the board into the actual case now. So make sure the standoffs are in the right area here. And I'm just going to offer this board up. This is an ATX motherboard and the standoffs are in the ATX position. So I'm just going to put the board straight in. But you do need to check to make sure the standoffs are in the right locations. Otherwise, you can end up touching the back of the board and that could ground the board out. And you don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and get this all lined up here. And that should fit in there lovely. And again, I do like these tough gaming motherboards. They are pretty durable and I do like them. I've got one for a previous PC that I built and it's still going strong. So pretty decent board. I'm just going to screw up and screw this to the actual case now. And once that's all done, we can then move on to the power supply. So let's go ahead and get the power supply in. Again, this is a pretty simple affair. All we need to do is just undo these 2 screws here. Some of these designs are different. This has like a bracket system that you screw to the power supply and then you can just tuck the cables in. If you've got a power supply that's modular, you can tuck all those cables in and around and then screw it back with these 2 screws here. So I went with the Tough Gaming 1000-watt power supply here. So that ties in with the motherboard and also with the graphics card. They're all Tough Gaming, so I went with that sort of theme really. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this because it's a modular power supply. You just have to screw the bracket down and then you could just use the 2 screws to mount the actual power supply. Now this case does have some ventilation down the bottom and also on the top. It has a shroud basement there. So I'm going to have the fan facing down here and this is basically going to draw air in from the bottom of the case into the power supply and it will exhale it out the back. And there is an opening in the shroud at the top there as well, but I'm just going to have it facing down, I think, for this one. Once I've done this, all I need to do is I've got all the cables already in the power supply here for the ones I need. I'm just going to feed those through and then just basically pour the power supply in. It's that simple, really. And then all I need to do is push this in and tighten those 2 screws down, which were on the bracket. And that's it. The power supply is then in. Now, some of the gaps between the hard drive cage and the power supply can vary depending on the size of the power supply and whether it's modular and whether it's riveted, the actual hard drive cage. So make sure you check on that area because you don't want it being super tight there and you're having trouble hiding your cables if you don't have a modular power supply. So plan your build out a little bit better. Look on the website and check the distance there and see if someone's done a build in it before. And then you can check. I'm just going to remove these nasty cable ties here. These are no good to you. Don't use these because they do have a little bit of wire in them. And sometimes there's a bit of wire showing at the end. And if it touches anything inside when it's on, it can short out the board and stuff. So don't use those. I've seen people recommending still use these because it saves on cable ties. But how much are cable ties nowadays? Pretty cheap. So I've just segregated all of the cables off in a way that I like to keep them separate. So it makes cable management a lot easier. And I also try to pick cases that are easy to cable manage in. I will make a video about cable management. If you want to see a video, let me know in the comment section below. I'll be happy to make that video for you. But you can see here, this does have really good cable management area here. It's got a little channel down here with some sticky felt there, which we can hold the cables back. And loads of anchor points here, which we can use to tie back the cables. Now, remember, a lot of people are not going to see this, so some people go a little bit anal about it when they're tying these back, but you don't need to worry too much because it's not going to be seen, but I do like to try and keep it nice and tidy. So I'm going to put the CPU cable up through here. Sometimes you can plug this in before you put the motherboard in if you've got a tight spot there, but this one has quite a big opening, so it's not so bad. So it's quite easy to get the cable in, but if it was, I would have put that in before I put the motherboard in. Just put the cables in like the 24 pin and all the other cables, and I can rotate this round a little bit later on because that looks like it's been twisted there. The thing to remember, this build is really for a work PC. It's not really to look pretty. It's going to be just for working on. And really, I normally don't have RGB on my work machines, but for this one, it does have a little bit of RGB, but it's not too bad. So what I'm going to do here is just feed all the cables through the back. This is for the actual fan here, the RGB fan, and also power. These are only 3-pin power, which is DC, so it's not actually PWM, which I prefer. And I've just got the RGB all daisy chained here, and we're going to go into the board here and put those into the motherboard so we can power these. Now, if you've got some sort of fan hub, you can use one of those. You can see I've got this all channeled down here, and it's going to be much nicer to have everything channeled down this area. So I'll try to buy cases that have got this sort of functionality to them. So everything is in now. I've got all of the cables plugged in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and get to the next stage. So you can see here I've got some of the cables poked through for the fans, and I just need to plug in all the fan headers here onto the board, and we're going to go ahead and do that as well. So I've got all the cables in the position I want. As you can see here, everything is plugged in, and I've got the USB 3.0 and also got all the other cables pushed through here. There is a little panel here that if you was putting, say, a radiator in the front, or you're putting the cables through, you can route them through here, but I'm going to leave those down. I don't need to disturb that. I think I can get to the graphics card from here, so that should be good enough. I've got the audio cable in, and I've also got the front panel connector on here. There's only one of them, so you just plug that in, and we're pretty much good to go here now. So let's go ahead and finish off. So I'm just going to put the radiator up here. So once I get the radiator in, I've already got the fans on here from the previous build. So I'm just going to put this up the top here. This is a 240mm rad on here from Phanteks. So I'm going to go ahead and get this screwed down. So once we've got the radiator in, all we need to do then is put the pump on the CPU and then get the GPU in, and we're pretty much done. Tidy up a bit of cable, and that's it. So let's go ahead and get that pump on and put some compound onto the chip, and we should be good to go. So let me go ahead and do this right here. So I'm just going to do this right now. And now I've removed the RAM temporarily because I want to get access to this a little bit easier. I'm just going to quickly do this. Now, whatever compound you want to use is entirely up to you. If you want to use the P method or whatever it is you want to use here, I'm just going to spread this out. I've got a little bag here. I'm just going to put it on my finger and just spread this out. You can use whatever method you like. Doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and get this on. Now, note to people that have never put one of these on before, just make sure that the sticky thing has been removed from the bottom of the pump or the cooler that you're using. And if it's already got compound on there that's pre-applied, then you don't need to apply any to the CPU itself. But this, because I had it already installed, I've had to remove it and clean it all. So I'm just going to go ahead and smear out a bunch of compound on here. And that's pretty much it. Just get the pump on now, and just tighten the screws down, the thumb screws at the top of the pump. Just going to hold this in position here. Really simple stuff. And just don't like the way that pump cable is there. It's a bit kinked. I'll have to look at that a little bit later on and see if I can get that to go down the side there a little bit. We'll just put this on. Maybe I should have put the cable down the other side, down on the fan side there, to maybe keep it away from the middle of the case. I might rotate that off camera after the build, but we'll go with it for this build right now. And we're going to screw this down and just finger tight these, and then you can just nip them up with a screwdriver, not too tight, just to give them a little turn. So what I'll do now is I'll just straighten this up a little bit here and move these brackets about a bit, and that'll do. And again, I could have had that on the other side, but I think it's not going to make much difference. It looks okay, and I'll just leave that as is, because at the end of the day, it is a work machine, so I'm just going to leave that as it is right there. What I've got to do here is just remove these two thumb screws here for the graphics card. And it's an RTX 4070 tough gaming graphics card. So we're going to go for that one there and stick that in the actual case. And I think it will fit nicely in here. And where I had it in an ITX system before, it was just so compact. And again, there was lots of YouTubers that have made videos with that particular case, and that particular setup and saying it works perfectly well. And to be honest, I'm not sure why, because it was having major heat issues where it couldn't dissipate the heat properly inside there because the heat was getting trapped in. And because it had that fine mesh on the side where the radiator was and on the front, it was just sort of getting stagnated in there and the heat was building up. And again, it started getting crashing and all sorts. So I did make a troubleshooting video. If you haven't watched that and you want to find out what happened, you can go ahead and watch that video as well. They're on my channel. I'm going to go ahead and just slot this into the slot here, click it in a position, and then we can get those thumb screws in and put the cable in for the power. I do like the new power cables connectors on these as well, make it a lot easier to get these plugged in. So let me go ahead and put these screws in here, or thumb screws I should say, and hold the graphics card up while we're doing it. Just got to add the power cable in for the graphics card. I do like these power cables. They're a lot nicer to power these graphics cards. And again, that 24 pin connector up there is twisted a little bit. I might need to pull that out and straighten it. I can probably do that off camera, but other than that, I think that is the build complete. And it doesn't look too bad. I'll quickly show you before I turn it on and power it on. And you might see a bit of dust floating about, but that's just, this room is quite dusty. No matter how much I try to dust it, it's just a lot of electronics inside here with NAS drives and stuff like that. It just creates a lot of dust in here. But there we go. The cable manager doesn't look too bad. I've just got to tidy up a little bit there with some cable ties, and I'll do that off camera to make it nice and snug. And that should be good enough. And that is it. That is the build complete. It's good enough for a work machine, and that's the end result. I think it's turned out okay. Got it as blue at the moment, and it looks much better in person than it does on camera. Camera doesn't give it justice. I do actually like this case, and it's running nice and cool now compared to the way it was when it was in that ITX build, which was really cramped and causing a lot of temperature issues. But other than that, it turned out pretty nice. And let me know in the comment section below whether you like this sort of content. If you do, I'll make more content like this. If not, then I won't bother. But I do enjoy building PCs, and I do enjoy making them. I know they're not the same as other people, the way they do their build videos where they do benchmarking. If you want to see some of that stuff, by all means, let me know, and I'll try and make that content for you. Other than that, I think that's going to be about it. I didn't put no RGB fans on the radiator. I've just left those as is because I don't want too much RGB, but that should be good enough. And I think it turned out pretty nice. Anyway, with that said, my name has been Brian from BritecComputers.co.uk. Just want to say a quick shout out to all my YouTube members who join my YouTube members group. I really do appreciate the support. Whether you're tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3, I really do appreciate it. Anyway, I shall catch you on the Discord server for a chat, or I'll see you in the very next video. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.